Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to look at one of the most mind-bending realities of our early Earth, and honestly, the incredibly unlikely heroes that completely transformed it. Think about it. If you were to somehow time travel back into the deep past, the planet you'd step onto would look absolutely nothing like the lush green world we know today. I mean, it would be entirely unrecognizable. So we're going to explore exactly how a completely barren rock floating in the middle of space managed to grow the very foundation of terrestrial life as we know it, and yeah, I'm talking about soil.
To really set the stage here, get a load of this: 90%. It is a staggering fact that for 90% of Earth's entire history, there was absolutely no soil. Literally none. Just picture our planet about 500 million years ago. If you were taking a stroll across the continents back then, everywhere you looked, you'd just see raw, barren rock. It was essentially a geologist's absolute paradise, but a complete biological desert. No dirt, no sand like we think of it today, no mud, just endless, solid stone.
What's truly fascinating here is the sheer, massive geological time span it took just to get the very first, thinnest layer of dirt on our planet's surface. I mean, we started out 4.5 billion years ago with a completely molten Earth, just a giant glowing ball of magma. And even when that finally cooled down into a solid crust, well, right up to that 500 million year mark, we still just had those barren rock continents. It's only within the very last 10% of Earth's entire history that deep soils finally started to develop. So how did we finally cross that threshold? How did we actually turn solid rock into the soil that now grows our forests and our food?
Well, that brings us to Section 1. Meet the ecosystem engineers. These are the microscopic heroes of terrestrial life.
You see, the whole barren rock problem wasn't solved by massive earthquakes or giant volcanoes. It was actually solved by something incredibly tiny, but man, remarkably persistent. The organism that finally cracked the code is the lichen. Now, a lichen isn't just one single thing. It's actually a symbiotic mashup, an association of an alga and a fungus. And together they function as this incredible self-contained mini ecosystem all on their own. Long before we had vascular plants, the leafy, rooted plants we see everywhere today, and even long after them, these tiny little ecosystems covered vast areas of the Earth's surface.
Their impact is so profound that it literally shifts how scientists view the world. There's this great quote from biologist Tim Wheeler. He actually worked as a geologist for 20 years, studying really old rocks. But he says, "It was lichens that kind of helped me transition from a geologist to a biologist." He just couldn't escape the fascination of what was actually growing on top of all those rocks. Lichens sit right at that magical intersection where cold, hard geology literally meets biological life.
And that really highlights why they're the ultimate hidden heroes of Earth's history. Lichens have incredibly delicate structures, which means they leave almost no fossil traces behind for us to dig up today. Because they aren't leaving giant, dramatic fossilized skeletons like a T-Rex, they're super easy to overlook. But researchers know for a fact that these totally inconspicuous tiny organisms are what actually paved the way for all life on land.
So, how'd they do it? Let's get into Section 2, cracking granite. We're looking at the mechanics of physical weathering.
We really need to look at exactly how they pull this off, because lichens aren't just sitting there passively hanging out on top of a rock. Not at all. They are engaged in a highly aggressive, active process of physical destruction. Just imagine what a lichen is up against when it colonizes a rock like granite. Granite is mostly made of silica. Those are the clear, tiny grains. But scattered all throughout it are these big, pale, off-white, and sometimes pink grains called feldspars. Now here's why that matters. Those feldspars have a super high mineral content. They are absolutely loaded with nutrients like potassium and calcium, and lichens are actively hunting for those exact nutrients locked deep inside the stone.
So the crucial takeaway here is that lichens act like tiny, microscopic miners. I mean, they're literally mining into the rock. They dissolve the crystals, pry open the granite, and crack it grain by grain just to suck those nutrients right up. It's this brutal physical weathering process. These tiny organisms are just forcing their way into solid stone just to survive.
Which brings us to Section 3, making clay, the chemistry of soil creation.
Because you see, physical force is really only half the story. To truly break down a mountain, you need chemical warfare. When you compare these two mechanisms side by side, you start to grasp exactly how these tiny ecosystem engineers systematically dismantle a stone. On the one hand, you've got the physical weathering we just talked about, cracking crystals and mining grain by grain. But on the other hand, you have chemical weathering.
Lichens actually excrete powerful acids that literally dissolve those hard mineral grains, transforming them right into soft clay particles.
Actually, if you've ever been out hiking and noticed those bright, beautiful patches of yellow, orange, or green on rocks, you're gonna love this fact. The vibrant colors you see on lichens, they aren't just for show. They often correspond directly to the specific, powerful acids those lichens are excreting. It's basically nature's neon warning sign that a highly active chemical dissolution process is happening right there before your eyes. So let's look at how this builds into the grander cycle of our planet. The exact step-by-step life cycle of soil creation goes something like this. Step 1, the lichen excretes its acid onto the solid granite. Step 2, that acid dissolves the mineral grains. Step 3, those dissolved grains turn into loose clay particles. And finally, step 4, those clay particles either fall out, blow away in the wind, or wash away in the next rainstorm. As those particles gather and accumulate over fast stretches of time, they literally build the very first layers of soil.
Let's move into our final section, paving the way for life, from the microscale to the entire biosphere.
We really need to zoom out now and look at how this microscopic mining operation fundamentally changed our entire planet. By colonizing the bare rock and slowly, painstakingly building that initial layer of clay and soil, lichens were literally preparing the ground. Think about it. Without this slow accumulation of dirt, the very first primitive waxy land plants would have had absolutely nothing to anchor into. Those early roots needed nutrients and loose material to grab hold of. Lichens provided exactly that, allowing those plants to take root and begin transforming endless rocky landscapes into the vibrant green ecosystems that we completely take for granted today. To truly appreciate all of this, we have to pause and reflect on the mind-bending scale required for this kind of work. Biologist Tim Wheeler perfectly captures it when he says, "We're talking millimeters to micron scale and then hundreds to thousands of years." It is incredibly slow, insanely persistent work. I mean, taking a massive, solid boulder and breaking it down into tiny soil particles is an undertaking of epic proportions, especially when you're only a few millimeters wide.
And this brilliantly illustrates the philosophical contrast between our everyday lives and the profound forces of nature. We live in this hyper-fast-paced human world, right, where we think in terms of days, weeks, maybe years if we're planning ahead. But lichens, they operate on a spatial and temporal scale that is entirely alien to us. They work quietly, fraction of a millimeter by fraction of a millimeter, over thousands and millions of years. It's a completely different rhythm of life, but it's the exact rhythm that built the foundation of our world.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. Next time you're walking outside, maybe hiking on a trail, and you spot a colorful patch of crusty lichen clinging to a bare rock, just stop for a second and ask yourself how much of our highly complex, incredibly fast-paced world ultimately owes its existence to the slowest, quietest, and most inconspicuous organisms on Earth. Without them, our green world would still just be a barren rock floating in space. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep looking closely at the world around you.